Welcome, everyone, to the Construction Hall of Fame podcast. Today, we have a special guest by the name of Jonathan Pinney from Branch Technology. He's the head of marketing. So, Jonathan, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Glad to be on.
Awesome. So, just to get into things, let's help the audience get an understanding of who you are, where you come from, and what brought you to where you are today as head of marketing at Branch.
Sure. So I did my undergraduate at the University of Georgia. Actually did it in economics, which not a whole lot to do with marketing there. But after undergraduate, went to work for a nonprofit where I got to wear lots of hats, and marketing was one of those hats. So had a little bit of experience of it there. Moved on from that to do grad school, and after grad school, went to work for a flooring manufacturer. Again, kind of starting not necessarily in a marketing role, but ended up through a series of events and meeting people within the company, ended up moving over to their commercial marketing division, where I spent about a year as their kind of international marketing specialist. And then left there to go to work for a laminate manufacturer and started as a product manager there, but kept kind of gravitating back towards the marketing side of things and ended up as their senior director of marketing and product before I heard about the opportunity at Branch and applied here. And after a series of interviews and ended up here. So yeah, was excited to join the Branch team.
That's awesome. It sounds like there was a bit of chance involved there with you getting into marketing in the beginning. It wasn't maybe what you expected, but one thing led to another. You got into marketing, you decided you loved it, and you took it from there, basically.
Yeah. So it was, had a little bit of a taste of it from just growing up. I had a parent who was in marketing kind of throughout their career. And so had been sort of around it and was familiar with it, probably more so than I was any other profession. And really, the movement towards marketing is, a career trajectory happened at Mohawk, and it was definitely through meeting someone. Really, the guy who I met and connected with was the senior, or he was the VP of commercial marketing at the time, and just sort of a very random encounter at a training event where I actually showed up late and there was one seat left in the room and it was next to him. And so we ended up kind of connecting after the event, and one thing led to another, and I ended up moving over into the commercial marketing division. So it was a bit of chance involved, I think.
Mm-hmm. It's amazing how meeting one person can change your life.
Yeah.
Like thinking back, it's like, what would have not happened in life if I personally was not to meet this person along the way, or that person who just happened to be dropped into your life, it seems like. But sometimes those types of relationships can build career trajectory or help you find something new that you love, like you did. So very cool how you came upon that, actually. But what I am curious about, so you came from marketing as a background with some construction experience, and you decided to join Branch. So from your perspective, Branch, startup company, growing fast, impactful mission, doing some really cool things. What in your opinion makes Branch special?
Yeah, I had actually experienced at a previous company really terrible culture, and through that experience, just it was not a great place to work. Had really a culture that was really toxic and really started kind of at the top of the company and disseminated down through the ranks. And experiencing that, I realized how important culture is in a company and how much of an impact that has on just your day-to-day work experience and the quality of work you do and the enthusiasm for work that you have. So as a result of that experience, culture is something that I highly valued and looked for in any prospective company whenever I was considering a job or, whatever the case may be. And so consistently with Branch, I had some familiarity with the company prior to ever having an opportunity here. I had a friend who worked here, and then had actually toured the company probably when they first started back in 2014, but knew that they had this really strong emphasis on culture. and just having really high quality culture and putting a lot of effort and intention into that. So that was one of the kind of key factors drawing me, not only for the opportunity of being their head of marketing and getting to work with a really exciting technology and new product in the construction market, but also just that they had this reputation for a fantastic culture, which has definitely proven to be the case.
Mm-hmm. So other than the fact that you knew someone at the company and you had worked with them prior, it sounds like a friend or something similar to that, what made you decide to join their mission? Like throughout the process, things you found, maybe through the interview process, things you picked up or things you already knew?
Sure. Like I said, culture is a big part of that, but also their focus and desire to change the way the buildings are built, to introduce their technology and bring it to kind of the mass market in the construction industry, and really try to revolutionize at least the building envelope at this point, methods of construction and the design capabilities of those commercial buildings. I just thought that was a really exciting thing to be a part of and a really interesting technology to be able to help promote and market and talk about and tell the story of. So yeah, that's really what drew me to want to become part of their mission and part of this company.
That makes sense. And something that really stood out from our conversation prior to actually having this podcast was when you told me about the interview process that you had with them. And we know as well, because we've recruited a director level candidate who is now placed with your team, and it sounds like it's doing awesome, which we always love to hear. Yes. But it sounds like there was really high level detail and attention put into the recruitment process. Would you mind sharing how that helped you get to know the company a little bit better and vice versa?
Sure, yeah. So the joke here at Branch is that there's this kind of gauntlet of an interview process, because for me personally, I think I had 6 interviews that comprised about 10 hours of interview time in total before they made me an offer, which was, in some ways, it was kind of like, wow, this is a really long process. I'm not sure at what point there'll be an offer or kind of how this works, but it did really help me get to know the company, because a good portion of that time was spent, certainly a portion of it was spent on, my technical capabilities and as a marketer and my experience in marketing. But there was also a good portion spent on just culture fit and spending time with my now manager, Dan, just in conversation, getting to know the company and its missions and priorities and the way that they operate as a community and as a work group. That amount of time being able to sit in conversation and kind of dive into the deeper components of how the company operates was really important for me to learn and get a good sense of whether or not it was a good fit for me professionally, and of course for them to get a good sense of whether I was the right fit for Branch and their culture.
Mm-hmm. And 10 hours can definitely seem like a long time, you're right. But at the end of the day, it sounds like you had the time to do your due diligence, they had the time to do their due diligence. And at the end of the day, they made a win-win hire, which is the goal. You're winning, they're winning. And so everyone involved can look back on it and say, okay, sounds like we made a great decision to work together. So even though it might have taken more time than you might have expected, and it sounds like it was beneficial
Absolutely.
for you.
Yeah, I think it's much easier to put in the time up front and put forth the effort to make sure you get the right hire than it is to then try to, to have to let that person go later because it's not a good fit or it's not working for whatever reason. So yeah, definitely think it's worth the effort to do that on the front end.
Mm-hmm. And oftentimes when you're hiring a higher level position that's going to be involved in making high level decisions in a young growing company, it involves a little more attention to detail, a little more time to ask questions and get to know a candidate through the process, and for you to get to know a company,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you as a candidate are taking a risk on a young growing company with a lot of upside potential, a lot to add to your life, but it's a younger company,
Sure.
right? And so that's something that weighs in the candidate's mind. So I believe the fact that they took so much time with you to go through the process was something that could help someone like you as a candidate, maybe not you, but someone like you, to become more comfortable with the team, who they're going to be working with directly. You get to meet your direct reports. You get to meet the team, get a really solid feel for the vision and where they're
Absolutely.
going. it sounds like, especially with a startup company like yours, for your case, it was super beneficial.
Absolutely, it was.
Mhm. And we see that happen other time, or oftentimes, I should say, with director and C-suite level hires. It's a longer, drawn out process oftentimes because there's more to it. But at the end of the day, it's about finding the right person and making sure you nail that fitness the first time around. So, cheers to Branch's process and you for sticking through the process. And we've got something awesome we're building. So, cheers to that.
Yeah.
Kind of piggybacking on that. So, as a head of marketing for a fast-growing construction company, what would you say right now are the top priorities or challenges that you're facing?
Sure. So moving from a company that was fairly commodity focused to a company that's got a brand new technology in the market, especially the construction market, presents a very different set of challenges from the previous company I was working with. I think for Branch, what I'm focused on right now and kind of our marketing efforts are focused on is certainly building our brand and our product awareness, because there's just not a ton of people who have heard of us. Being fairly new and still relatively small, trying to build that brand recognition and just kind of help people understand who we are and what we do and what our product is, and just making them aware of us. That's one of the primary focuses that we have right now. We're also true to the industry and I'm sure your listeners know, for the construction industry, it's not necessarily a fast adopter of new technology. It tends to be fairly conservative with, we've done things this way for 100 years, so we're going to keep doing it that way. So beginning to change the perspectives on that and helping them, those customers, be it architects or contractors or whoever the case may be, understand what the technology is, how it works, and the benefits that it offers, whether it's design freedom for the architect or rapid installation for the contractors, and everyone else along the way, kind of where the benefits are. That's a big part of our focus right now. And being in the construction industry, everything happens relatively slowly. So trying to build that brand, even if you're building brand recognition, just because of the long timelines that you often face in the construction industry, and especially right now, it just takes time to kind of build that awareness and build product recognition there. So that's what our focus is.
And there's really so much that goes into building product recognition, building out a brand, building a marketing strategy. And I mean, like you said, it's not easy to get construction companies to adopt tech a lot of the time. It might be a little bit of a slower industry to adopt these types of things. So in your perspective, what separates a good construction marketing strategy or a decent one from a great one?
Sure, it's a good question. I think that a good marketing strategy will help grow sales and generate product interest. But a really great one does that, as well as maintaining kind of the long-term strategy and focus of what the marketing strategy is and where the company wants to go, not just generating buzz, but also, generating long-term and sustainable interest and direction with that marketing strategy, as well as being financially disciplined. I think we see a lot of startups, not just in the construction industry, and we're seeing kind of the effect of this now, who just churn through money and burn it in order to win that recognition. But it may not be to the right customer base. It may not be the right product market fit, all those sorts of things. And you're seeing the consequence of that now as, money becomes a little scarcer in the startup world. I think it folds, the marketing strategy folds into the broader organizational strategy. So it's not functioning as an island. It's not kind of operating separately from the rest of the organization. So it has to have that continuity and be in lockstep with the sales strategy and the go-to-market strategy and all the other elements that the organization is operating on. And of course, drives the desired outcome, that it's generating more sales and more interest, and doing this in a sustainable way.
Mm-hmm. That makes so much sense. And I actually saw a quote. It was like something like a week ago on LinkedIn, and it was something along the lines of the best marketing strategies are the ones that have the ability to think as long-term as possible. So yes, the short-term goal is the KPIs of leads and sales and revenue and pipeline and all this good stuff. But if you can achieve that while having marketing that has a lasting impact and builds long-term goodwill in the marketplace, like you're talking about, it sounds like that's what you believe is the real win-win
definitely.
as well. Mm-hmm. big time right there. So anyone who's listening is looking to build out a construction marketing strategy. Gary V, jab, 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 right hook is something that really can be valuable to build that long-term brand recognition that isn't just for the quick win, just for the quick jab, but you can, really, or the quick right hook, but you can really build long-term goodwill in the market. So big insight right there. Thank you, Jonathan. So kind of piggybacking on that too, talking about challenges. As a construction marketing leader, what would you say is the biggest challenge you faced over your career?
Probably one of the biggest challenges I've faced, thankfully, isn't one at Branch, or isn't one that I faced at Branch, but trying to strategically market in an organization that doesn't have a strategic direction that it's trying to go. So what I was saying about the marketing strategy being in line with all of the other organizational strategies, having been a part of an organization where there really wasn't an organizational strategy, that they really couldn't answer the question of why do we exist? What are we doing? Who are we trying to become? The answers to those questions would have been, well, we're trying to make money. And that's not really a strategy because every organization is trying to make money. There's more to it than that. And so trying to market strategically in an environment or a company that doesn't really have a vision of who it wants to be was a real challenge because it made it difficult to make strategic decisions because the organization could decide tomorrow to do something completely different and there was no real vision for that. So yeah, it's hard to build a long-term strategy if the organization doesn't have a long-term strategy.
And on top of that, something I've seen when dealing with marketing professionals and having some pretty solid experience marketing myself, if you work for a leader who doesn't understand marketing and really will allow you as the head of marketing to have the creative ability to create campaigns and to build strategy, it oftentimes, especially if the leader, whoever you're reporting to as a marketing leader, if they don't get it, if they don't understand marketing, that side of things, it can really bottleneck somebody. And it takes away pretty much all the creative freedom from someone like you who would go out and create. That's your job. That's what you're great at. But on top of that, it leaves the company with no clear path. With the marketing team has no real idea of who to market to because they're just like, hey, go make me money. There's no business plan. So it's actually a big effect what you brought up on really any type of employee who's looking to grow and impact the company. If the team can't support you and they don't understand what you're up to, but they have this kind of like loose laissez-faire mission of let's go make some money, that really doesn't get anyone on the same train to push in the same direction.
Yeah, it makes it very challenging for sure. And it's hard to drive that bus kind of from the bottom up. A lot of that there has to be buy-in at the leadership level, at the executive suite level for what that strategy and vision is. And that can be hard to push from behind if there isn't that buy-in or vision. So yeah, definitely important that leaders have an understanding of the value of marketing and the importance of it and support it appropriately.
100%. So what would you say are some of the biggest mistakes that startups make when they're building a marketing strategy?
I think there's a number, and I think we're seeing some of the effects of these mistakes right now with other startups out there. As I said, as money is getting a little scarcer and harder to get, and from fundraising, we're seeing some startups that have not done this well starting to kind of collapse financially. But I think one is differentiating between a marketing strategy, what I was talking about with the long term, doesn't change. Marketing strategies don't necessarily change often unless your organization is pivoting, going in a whole new direction. Your marketing plan and execution can change frequently, but your overall strategy should be, once it's set, it should be the path that you're focused on. So making sure that you have a marketing strategy and a marketing plan and that you differentiate between those two and you're not just sort of throwing darts at the wall to see what sticks. That there's strategic thought given to that. So another is that all tools are useful, but not all tools are helpful. I see a lot with social media where I feel like every company feels like it has to be on every platform. And that's just not true because not every platform is appropriate for your audience and your goals and your objectives. So, and those platforms are just tools. They're not something that are, necessarily important for your marketing strategy, but that's the reason that you think through that marketing plan and how you're going to execute is understanding, what are the tools that are right for us as an organization and how do we leverage those tools well. So yeah, I think especially with startups, there's a tendency to just kind of blow out every social media platform, every avenue that they can, in this sort of scattershot approach. And you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck if you put the upfront work in and determine and do the work and the research to say, okay, these are the effective platforms that we need to be on, and these are the ones that we don't have to care about. I think there's also focusing on the smallest market that you can be sustained by. Seth Godin talks about this in one of his books, This is Marketing, but just really trying to narrow in your focus to make sure that you're going after the right customers for your product and not just the middle market. Because if you start out as a startup going for the middle market, you're going for the most competitive place that you can possibly try to target. So it's going to be the hardest to gain any real traction in, and your voice is most likely to get lost in the massive messages that part of the market is getting hit by. So you want to focus on the niche market that is the most appropriate for the product that you're putting out there, and that's who you're targeting, and that you just hyper focus on them, at least in the beginning. The middle market can come down the road after you've grown and you're successful and you've got good financial footing and all that sort of stuff. You can start moving in that direction. But certainly for a startup, you want to be very, very focused. And for that same reason, you're trying to gain that position of mind, so that you can really be kind of the first that a customer or potential consumer thinks of when they think about your product or wherever you are in the market. You want to be the one that they think of. So that's one of the examples of kind of how you go for that.
As they say, the riches are in the niches. And that is even more relevant when we're talking about startups, because you need to get a message that resonates. You need to get confirmation from the market that you have product market fit, right? Like there are so many things that go into being a startup and having your message speak to one specific person. For example, if you're a construction company and you say, I help build hospitals, or if you say, I help build commercial construction, just that one small tweak will help your message stand out to someone who needs to build a hospital that much more powerful, I guess, right? So basically the message is really important, that the specific wording and the messaging around your story and your brand messaging speaks to that small niche audience, as opposed to, like you said, speaking to the whole middle market where everyone's advertising to. And again, it goes back into picking that niche and making sure that your messaging is really speaking to the right ideal audience. So that right there, for everyone listening, that's gold. And another thing that you said earlier that I found really insightful, it's about the strategy versus the plan. From your perspective, it sounds like the macro strategy should not be changed. You shouldn't be pivoting your overarching strategy, which includes brand messaging, brand story. That should remain somewhat streamlined or the same throughout the process. But the plan is what you'll iterate. The plan is where you'll make tweaks, you'll make changes, you'll pivot, and you might pick a different platform. You might pick a different, method of deployment for your messaging. But overall, the arching strategy and the message of your brand is not going to change all that much, right? That's pretty much
because the strategy is what's locked into the rest of your organizational strategy and where your organization wants to go. And so unless the rest of the organization is changing, that really shouldn't change.
100%. Makes so much sense. So what tips would you give to a company who is looking to increase brand awareness with candidates and clients, right? So they're looking to have their brand messaging and their marketing do what it's supposed to do, attract clients, attract great employees to the company. What tips would you give surrounding that?
That's a good question. And it's a little bit different because, so you mentioned for attracting employees, but then also for attracting customers, which are obviously those are two different kind of customer segments. So you've got the people you're trying to draw to your organization to, hey, come work for us. Like we're a really cool company, versus the buy our product customers. And that can overlap a little bit. But I think authenticity is a big part of that in the way that you structure your messaging, both for your customers and for making yourself appealing to potential employees, is being authentic with your messaging, authentic with your brand. Making sure that your messaging is consistent and that you're promoting the strengths of your organization in your marketing, whether that's culture or whether that's execution or whether it's, whatever technology, whatever the case may be. making sure that the messaging of those strengths it resonates through all of your marketing efforts, to really communicate kind of what is it that makes our organization great, not only because we have a great product, but more and more now, consumers, because they're so inundated with choice, they're buying not just the product, they're buying the company, they're buying the culture of the company, they're buying whatever it is that the company has positioned themselves around as a strength. That's what they're trying to reach consumers with, and so it kind of works as kind of killing two birds with one stone, where it's also helping them kind of appeal to their potential employee base, or potential recruits, to make sure that they're showing their strengths to them as well. So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
And you are practicing what you preach. If anyone goes to Branch Technology's LinkedIn page, we consistently see them talking about their team, their culture, the projects they work on. And so if anyone's looking for a real life example of how to do what Jonathan's talking about, just go to Branch Technology on LinkedIn, check out the awesome stuff they're up to, and see how they're branding themselves, because it's a direct reflection of Jonathan's work. So
sure.
Thanks for sharing that, Jonathan. That's great stuff, right? Okay. So marketing's an interesting profession. There's a lot of shiny object syndrome. There's always something new popping up that you can try. So what do you do to continuously learn to stay on top of your craft without getting, down rabbit holes, or, getting caught up with things that aren't actually going to drive the needle?
You're right. There is constantly new information out there. And I think what you have to be careful of is there is also constantly repackaging and representing of the same information. We see that certainly in all industries, but if you just start doing Google searches on, marketing and how to market and all that sort of stuff, you end up running into a lot of just, whether it's clickbait or whether it's content for the sake of content, where it's like, oh, once you start reading it, you realize this really isn't telling me anything new. It's just repackaging what I already have heard or read somewhere else. So it's really important to seek out credible sources. It's important to seek out what I would call kind of curated sources. So making sure that you're going after the best resources rather than just give me some resources. And there's some different strategies to do this. I tend to read a lot, mostly books. Certainly there's valuable content online. It can just be hard to kind of dig through all the mountain of content that's out there on marketing to find the stuff that's really appropriate, because you've got very niche content where it's like there's a ton on content marketing right now, and because it's very popular, and that's a great way of communicating with your audience, but it's not always appropriate for every industry or everything for what you're looking for. So I tend to gravitate towards books, so I read a lot. And there are still endless numbers of these books out there. So try to find the ones that are most valuable. And then experimenting with different ideas, kind of going and looking at the marketing plan and figuring out execution. It's important to experiment and look at the way that others are experimenting with their marketing, and not just reading about it on a blog or whatever, but actually going to the website and seeing what they do, and analyzing, okay, how does this progress me through their website, or how is it presenting the content to me, or whatever the case may be. And then I think it's really important to spend time reflecting and thinking, and this means time not doing something else, which is hard to get because we're all busy and we all have these hyper busy lives. So it's important to take time away. It doesn't have to be a ton of time. It can be 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day, maybe not even every day, but just spend time thinking about the way that you're going to market it, the way that you're presenting your product, or what are the experiments that you could do with the way that you present to customers, or build better ROI feedback on marketing investments, those sorts of things. So yeah, those are a couple of recommendations.
Got it. Books and a little self-reflection. Self-reflection, I mean, just sitting there and thinking, I think it's so underrated if you don't do it already. For me, it's really simple. I'll wake up 30 minutes earlier than I expected, or I'll carve out 30 minutes after dinner just to do nothing. And when I do that, I just sit there and I ponder Oh, we had this interesting interaction with a candidate today. How can we leverage this to help candidates better in the future with our team? We had this client interaction. How can we, et cetera, right? The point is, when you sit there and you actually think about these things, great ideas come. And not the shower ideas, like people say, right? Like sometimes when you're in the shower, the most random but potentially good ideas can come to you. So that definitely makes sense. So everyone listening to this, maybe take another 30 minutes, maybe even 15 minutes out of your day, do a little reflection, see if that helps. I know it's helped me. Sounds like it's really helped Jonathan, and who knows, maybe it could help you too. So kind of just getting to the end of the podcast. This has been awesome to have you on. Sure. I have a couple more questions for you. So if you had an extra $1 million in marketing budget this year, how would you spend it?
So it's a good question. I think it's funny when we first hear questions like this. I think we tend, or at least I tend to hear them in a personal way. And there's a huge difference between if someone gave you $1 million to do whatever you want to do with versus someone gives you a budget $1 million for your company. I think the outcomes look very different. It feels like $1 million personally. It's like, wow, I could do a ton of really cool and interesting things, and I could travel, and I could, whatever the case may be. Budgets with companies are a little different because it tends to be a little less glamorous, if you will. So I think for me, for just where we are, because of our focus on, getting our brand out there, I think I would extend our current strategy implementation into a few additional markets and try to hire a couple other staff members. So that's not obviously not super glamorous, but certainly more video content for us would be huge. Because we're a highly visual product, so the better we can tell that story through visuals, especially great photography and great video, goes a long way towards telling that story. So, extending our strategy implementation with our marketing plan, with marketing content of better visuals and additional markets that we would target into, probably two of the primary ways that I would spend that money, and then bringing on some other staff members for marketing.
You say that's not glamorous, but I mean, for the nerds of the world who nerd out on business growth like me, sure. Nothing against nerds. I love nerds, but basically this is stuff that's really cool and really impactful, actually. We're talking about building out strategy, building out new marketplaces, bringing on new team members that when the time comes to growing startups, this stuff gets me really excited, actually. So I don't know who's listening, but I think this is glamorous. This stuff is actually fun stuff for me. And really, this is kind of something that we talked about earlier a bit, Seth Godin reference, but what would 3 books or podcasts or whatever marketing materials, what would you suggest for someone looking to grow their marketing chops on this?
Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of podcasts. I don't listen to very many podcasts typically because I have so many other things that I'm listening to. I do a lot of audiobooks and I do audio news. And so as a result, I don't get a lot of time for podcasts. I've got a handful of them, but yeah, they're not.
You just show up and drop tons of value on podcasts as a guest. You're not the type.
No, I do have a couple of podcasts, but they're not marketing related, which I think plays into one of my recommendations. I think it's really important, as much as it's important to read about your craft and to constantly be trying to improve it and, and deepen your knowledge of it and sort of mastering that craft. I think it's really important and really valuable to read widely and to have a lot of different things that you read about or listen to. And like I said, my podcasts are not related to marketing. They're all related to, economics or culture or, whatever the case may be. So I highly recommend, that's kind of probably my biggest recommendation is whatever your interest, whether it's books or whether it's podcasts, make sure you get outside of the area that you're focused on. Like whatever if you're marketing, read things that are not marketing related. Psychology obviously plays well into marketing, but get well outside the boundaries of whatever your professional craft is and kind of explore other areas, because you never know when you're going to have that cross-pollination of ideas or things that you think, wow, this could be a really cool thing to do or to apply in the marketing world. But to get back to your question, The Infinite Game, unfortunately, I can't remember the author's name at the moment, but The Infinite Game was a fantastic book that I read probably about a year ago that really shifted my thinking how competition works and how businesses work in environments where there's not an end to the game. I mean, we talk about winning in business, but what is it to win? Like your customer, like you're going to continue to compete. Even if you win this year, your competition is probably still going to be there next year. Or if they're not, there's going to be other competition. So understanding the differences that come with a game that doesn't end as opposed to a finitely time-bound game like a football game or a soccer game. Those are crucial differences and ones that we don't tend to focus on. So that I thought was fantastic and really important for just business in general. Seth Godin, highly recommend him. Al Reese, I don't know how to say his name actually, but a lot of his writing, it's older, but I think it has a lot of staying power. So things like positioning, and I think there's the 22 immutable laws of marketing. Those are really good. Jim Collins' work, Good to Great. Lots of really valuable business advice, general advice in there that certainly plays well into the marketing side of things, especially when he starts talking about the flywheel that goes in the Good to Great book. There's like a tack on sort of short novella or whatever on turning the flywheel, which I thought was really fantastic. So yeah, those are a couple of books, but there are countless others out there. And I'm sure if you ask 10 different marketers, they'd have 10 different top recommended books there. But yeah, those are mine.
Yeah, there is. I don't know if you can even count the number of marketing books out there and marketing courses, strategies, and hey, there's a lot of great ones out there. But that's why I want to ask you, and our community wants to know from you what you value, because you go through a ton of content. You're in the space, you're in the trenches every day. So thanks for sharing those books. And if anyone's reading this or listening to this podcast and they want to go level up their marketing game, I highly suggest you go check out those books. So to kind of cap things off, Jonathan, what are the future plans for you and Branch Technology? Is there any fun projects or initiatives you want to highlight before
Sure.
we cut this podcast?
So we are certainly a cladding-focused company. I mean, our product is commercial cladding. Excuse me. Commercial cladding that's 3D printed. We have this incredible technology, and that is our core market and core product. But we also have this really fun partnership. Or some really fun partnerships. We don't just have one, but one cool one that we've got some news coming out. I can't say a whole lot here because we're going to be releasing more on it later, but we have a partnership with NASA that we've done previous work with, and we have a particular project coming up in October that we're going to be releasing some video content on and all that, which has to do with space and printing technology in space, which is super cool. So anyway, so yeah, that's that. Unfortunately, I can't say more, but yeah, that's a fun partnership that we've got some work coming up on.
That sounds like a fun project right there. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the show, putting together this episode. Super valuable. If you're looking to level up your marketing game, level up your team's marketing game in the construction space, really the AEC space in general, this is a podcast that I hope you really enjoyed listening to, because I know that I enjoyed putting it together with Jonathan. There's a lot of gold in here. I come from sort of a marketing background myself, and I can really appreciate what he's talking about because I've learned a lot of it, implemented a lot of it, and this has been a really great episode, Jonathan. So thanks for coming on here and shedding some light on your knowledge and the value you've been able to bring to your career and now Branch. And
thanks, Matt.
Thanks again. Just want to say thanks
having me on, and appreciate being able to be a part of it.
All right, Jonathan. Well, for anyone who wants to reach out to you, learn about Branch, where can they find you?
Good question. You can email me, jonathan.pinney@branch.technology. Last name is Pinney. And then, I don't know, I'm on social media as well, Facebook, Twitter, things like that. I'm not very active on Twitter, but yeah, you can reach out to me on those. LinkedIn is probably the best place, though. Yeah.
All right. Well, lots of exciting stuff coming up for Jonathan and the team at Branch Technology. This has been an awesome podcast, and I'm looking forward to drop this for the community. So wishing you all the best, Jonathan.